In this video, I'm going to go over the two different types of batteries that are inside these spy watches, how to replace them, and also how to swap out the internal micro SD card. This procedure will work for virtually any spy watch you might own. One of the first things to fail on these watches is the clock battery. If you notice the clock hands are no longer working on your watch, as you can see, the second hand isn't even ticking anymore. The very first thing you should check, and the simplest, is make sure this setting knob is punched in all the way. You press it in and the watch will start ticking again. Now if that isn't the issue, you need to pop the back cover off, and I'm going to show you how to do that. It's going to work for virtually any other spy watch that you own. So just pay attention to the video. We're going to cover the two different types of batteries that you'll find in each one of these spy watches and how to replace them. Okay, first of all, you're going to want to put some kind of cloth down on your table, because you're going to be flipping this over and you don't want to be scratching that nice glass face. The next thing you're going to need is a flat tip screwdriver. What I had to actually do is I had to sand the tip down with sandpaper to actually make it thin enough, because it needs to fit right in that tiny slot right there. So you just grab some 60 grit, put this on a table, and just drag this across it multiple times. And that will sand it down to a fine point. Yeah, you might have to destroy a screwdriver in order to do this, but once you have this tool made, you can replace the battery anytime you want. The next step is to locate this tiny little notch that's back here. Hopefully it's in a place that's convenient for you. But you want to make sure this screwdriver fits in there and it has some grab. And you'll know I'm going to be pushing in this way on it, and then we're going to turn it that way. Okay, so we're going to hold pressure in and then turn, and just to pop it off. Just like that. Now sometimes it might be harder to remove than that. Sometimes it's easier. Once you pop it off, you can see it reveals, first of all, this lithium polymer battery here. This is a tiny LiPo 1-cell battery, and so it's basically a 3.7 volt battery. This battery powers the camera. It does not power the hands on the face of the clock. Okay, there's a separate battery for that. Now if you ever need to replace this battery, you need a very small soldering iron. Now I'm not going to cover replacing this battery because that's a little bit more advanced. So what we're going to do is we're going to get to the other battery right now. For the next step, you're going to need a really tiny Phillips screwdriver. This set works really good. They're really small and they get the job done. Usually these watches have two screws right here, which hold the circuit board in. So we're just going to unscrew both of these. Now to get this circuit board out, it takes a little bit of trial and error. Just use the tip of your screwdriver. You can also use the flat one that you just made. And if you can get behind the circuit board, it's always the best. Sometimes you can maybe lift it up by the SD slot. Sometimes it's more difficult. You just want to be really careful how you pull this out. There you go. It looks like we're going to go from this end. And once I have it out a little bit, it feels like it's sticking, like maybe there's some tape on the back of it. There you go. Okay, what I did, it was the USB port that was holding it. It was stuck right there. So what I did is I stuck the screwdriver in there and I rotated to kind of push it away, and that helped it come out. So I'm just going to go over that. Okay, now and you see the camera is still wanting to stay in there, the camera lens. So let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and do this one without moving that lens. We're going to leave the lens right where it's at. But as you can see, what was holding the circuit board up was this protruding USB port right here. Okay, so just remember that when we go to put it back in. I'll show you how to get that back in there. Okay, now what we've revealed here is this tiny little battery. Okay, that battery is known as a 377 or a 376 silver oxide battery. It's supposed to be 1.55 volts. And it looks just like that. Now I'm going to replace it with an Energizer battery, because the batteries that come from China are probably not Energizer, and that's why the hands stop so easily sometimes. Now in order to get this out of here, again, I haven't done one of these. Let me see if I can get it in one shot. Oh, look at that. Now sometimes they have a little clip. that holds them in there. So sometimes you have to fight with them a little bit. Sometimes they have tape over them. Chinese manufacturers put these in here in so many different ways. This one came out extremely easily. Now let's put it on the voltmeter and see how many volts it is. Okay, just using a Craftsman voltmeter here. Let's see what we're reading. So this one's reading 1.47 volts. Okay, so that's plenty good enough. A lot of times when they're brand new, they might read like 1.6 volts or 1.7, but this one's totally well within range. So I'm just going to go ahead and reinstall this one. Now once the battery's out real quick, you'll notice that the analog clock has stopped. Okay, so let's go ahead and put it back in. It just pushes back in. Sometimes there's little tabs on each side that you have to kind of work around. You have to get in there with a screwdriver to kind of get the tab back and then push it in. You can see that the second hand is still ticking. And then just reverse everything. Now on this side over here, this USB port that was sticky coming out, you want to put that in first. Okay, so try to maneuver the circuit board on the edges. Try not to touch the face of it where all the solder joints are. Okay, and just push it back in. Now, one thing you might notice right here is this is a micro SD card. This is kind of hard to do, filming and doing this at the same time. But there we go. This is just a regular standard micro SD card. Okay, and every single watch that I have operated on just has a regular micro SD card. Okay, it's not even a name brand, it just says SD under that sticker. This one happens to be 8 GB. So the circuit board is all the way in. So now once that's in, let's go ahead and put the screws back in. Very gently cinch them down. They're not supposed to, it's just supposed to keep it from rattling in there. That's it. That's all the tighter you need to put it in. Alright, then you can put the LiPo battery back on top. And when I put this cover back on, I like to kind of line it up where I initially pulled it up from. So there's our tab right there. And I'm going to line it up with this little scratch mark. Unfortunately, when you replace the battery, it's really difficult not to make a little scratch right there on the case. But hey. Okay, again, this is where you definitely want to be making sure you work on a towel or something. You can, if your fingers are strong enough, just pick it up. It did take a little bit of pressure to get that cover back on. But now the cover's on, and what you can do is you can put it on a hard workbench and then just really apply some pressure to put that back on there. If you're interested in purchasing any of this style of watch, go ahead and click on the link underneath the video and you'll be taken to my SpyWatch store.